Call to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Roll call.
Mr. Bernaro.
Here.
Mr. Fernandez.
Here.
Mr. Grady.
Here.
Ms. McNair.
Here.
Mr. Millard. Here. Mr. Paradis. You have a quorum.
Does anybody have a?
Nope.
Okay. I will.
Motion to approve the September 10th minutes.
Question. A couple people. Those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. One here.
Sure. Move to approve $360,000 unbudgeted appropriation of fiscal year 25 general fund balance. Appropriate the funds to Farmington Avenue non-grant and in the economic development fund.
Second. Discussion.
Is this to clean up that area?
It is to hopefully finish off the cap. Right now, B&W who's the contractor doing the work, is continuing on, but there is a cap on the amount we can spend. It was pending first a state grant, now forgivable loan. This would allow us to remove that cap sooner while still pursuing a forgivable state loan.
Those in favor?
Aye.
I'll move.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Good night, Jim.
Have a good night. Yeah, you don't want me to talk about the fire department, right?
Move to approve a $75,000 non-budgeted appropriation fiscal year 25 general fund unassigned fund balance and appropriate the funds to the fire department grant.
Second. Discussion.
George, is this the one you said was good and Jerry wasn't here?
No.
I think it was the 360.
I know.
Well, you had part of the conversation. My head was spinning.
I listened.
You would have had a billion questions.
I listened.
What is
Thank you
this
for the
one about? I don't understand what this one's about. Maybe we talked about it before. I don't know. Did we talk about it?
We did last year. Kensington Fire
Oh,
Fire
never
Department
mind.
downtown.
This is the. Manson.
The engine,
Little
yep.
piece.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, I just put it on as information for everyone here. I got it, so let's look at it. If there's any questions tonight, we have fun here. You know, just information. Or the budget for us, but again, so.
Difference in his approach versus.
I think there's one like change where council has to include stop lines.
And that was really the request of the mayor and the council, July, I think it was. When the bonding came forward, they asked to see all of the major purchases. We're not going to come forward with every vehicle or that type of,
Purchases or projects?
either one,
Capital.
capital, I'm sorry, yes.
Capital.
And the premise behind that, and you guys have referenced this a couple of times, is you really look, and I think everybody else does too, to the council to sort of prioritize from a town perspective. That doesn't mean they have absolute authority, and certainly if they approve more than you're willing to include within the budget, then you would have the authority to budget less money. But this gives the council the opportunity to hear the projects first. If they're going to refer them to Public Building Commission or some other entity, kind of going through a staged process. That will also help us. You may recall in this budget, the money was removed, but we had asked for some money under the Public Building Commission because oftentimes when things are referred to the Public Building Commission, they then need additional work. They need to hire outside consultants and they don't have a budget to do it. So we're trying to give a little bit more disciplined approach to say, these are the projects that we expect in the next 2 to 3 years. Therefore, next year, we would like X dollars so the Public Building Commission has money so that they can go hire obviously staff would do it, but so they can hire the experts and the professionals.
So how does the funding approval from the Board of Finance factor into this?
This is actually in order to get onto the capital plan to come to you for the budget. So basically, the council wants the ability to see it beforehand. So for example,
But they are of the understanding that they're not the de facto decision makers as to whether it gets on the budget. That's
they,
clear to them?
yeah, in July, the mayor basically during the meeting said, we'd like to see this before it gets put onto the budget. I would not think, there was nothing I've heard that would lead to a misunderstanding. I think it's pretty clear. You guys are the budget setting body. They can obviously modify it. But
No, they can't add.
okay, they can reduce or reject. I'm
You
sorry.
still have the capital committee meeting?
We will be. Capital is due by the end of October. We'll be meeting in November.
Can you send us out the date on that? Because I'd like to attend it. We're not participating in it.
Sure. Sure.
Are we able to ask questions?
You were attending?
would
I don't
think
see
we
why
should be able-
not. I mean, it's a public meeting.
Should, yeah, right. Oh, we have to stop calling this the capital committee. Because that's a make-believe thing that now the members of the Board of Finance can't participate. Because it's called a committee, the town charter says, we can't see on any committees or commissions.
Yeah, and the committee
So-
should be chartered by the town charter. not by-
This capital meeting is just a meeting of the town managers.
That's
If
fine.
we don't call it committee, we can go back to what we used to do, and that was the whole point of the town council wanting this stuff ahead of time. Because nobody was reviewing it.
That's a very good point.
We can do that.
Let's do that.
Can I just, one of the things Kevin was mentioning was about PVC and how money was proposed for them. You know, original deliberation process, we cut it out. Just want to give you a real life example of it, where it would have come in handy this year. The golf course is going through a process of trying to redo the bunkers. We've talked about it as we have items. It came to us to vote on the ordinance at one point. Well, for the first time ever, a golf course project like that, because the bunkers have been done twice before, was referred back to the public building committee. And the public building committee turned around and said, oh, well, we need architectural drawings or approvals. So of course, the golf course has no money except what we give them in their regular budget. They don't have anything for, take care of something like that. So this is holding up the whole thing. It's gonna delay it a full year now. And it's already 3 years into the bunkers getting washed away. So, but it's the process that we have, but it's just an example of what could have moved the process along quite a bit more had there been some money sitting there for PVC to say, okay, we need architectural. Here's 25 grand, go get someone to sign on. But just an example of, so when it comes up next year, at least we have a real life example of, how that might play into things going forward.
And we are going to, as a capital meeting, we're going to discuss, we typically discuss the year we're going to be budgeting, but because of this, we're going to focus also on years 2 and 3. We're not going to go out 10 years, but those are really the projects that should be reviewed by the PBC should be thinking about, I'm reviewing it in 26 to execute in 27 or in 28. And if we start thinking in more like a 3-year cycle, it will help us from the PBC operating cost versus the capital 2 or 3 years out. This will be a little clunky because obviously this is the first year and we're coming into it, but that's sort of that's probably the biggest change we're trying to make, which I actually think is a good change because it'll give you more visibility. It will give you a little bit more control. And it will allow people who work regularly with projects, project managers and construction to weigh in and have some time to do that. And you guys will have some time to deliberate these different projects. So I think it's a
That's something
positive.
to look at that, to give them some sort of a fund to work out of that.
I don't
I
wouldn't
think they
give
need
them a
a ton to
fund,
be.
but I'd give them.
But you know what I'm saying?
appropriation.
Right, appropriation for, we could cap it at so much and it has to be,
Yeah,
we can give a little leeway on the smaller projects, you know, $3,000-4,000, whatever.
Yeah, I don't, because in this case, I haven't talked to Saul lately. The original estimates were, it's gonna be at least $20,000-30,000 to give the PVC what it is that they want.
We haven't given up on it, though. I've got a couple of different
Yeah.
thoughts in mind. I'm not giving up on it.
I think it was just that there was no plan. You know, when the question was asked, well, how much is it gonna cost and what's the plan?
Well, he had.
I was
he had
actually
two
listening
bids.
to the meeting that night. It wasn't,
He had
it didn't
bids.
go well for the golf.
He had bids.
Yeah. I think the bridges got tied up in the same mess.
Yes.
I mean, from Don Lombardo's perspective, because I've talked to him about it, his concern was that there was no definitive design, such that in the future, if the design fails, there's no throat to choke, so to speak. There's nobody accountable for bad engineering or whatever. You're not gonna be able to go back to the people who did the work because there's no engineered design how to do it. That was his argument.
Okay, couple other things, I mean, it's like, there's new positions proposed in the parliamentary legislature to freeze on position.
So he's being hired in 50.
Tell me what the position you may need, but
So the mandate is a hiring freeze, but if there's an urgent thing that can happen, it's open to.
it says this position will not be included in the 26 budget. And not be filled due to lack of funding.
Well, I think in there, he starts out by saying you have to either self-fund it, either through cuts somewhere else, or increases in revenue, or don't plan to come forward.
And the other thing is you have to work on that level. So you guys let's take a look at it. For your information.
Sure, he's very familiar with it. It hasn't changed that much.
As long as you got.
Yeah, update on bonding. So we had the bond sale and the money actually closed today. So it is actually in the bank. The money that we'd set aside, about 2.4 million between the two upcoming HVAC projects. About 860,000 for the police station, which gives us a little bit of room if something comes up with contingency. But I didn't borrow the full amount of contingency, and then the 1.3 million for the police radios. So that money settled today. We are all settled and all done with that. In advance of that, we had to go get a rating. So you have it with you, but S&P affirmed our AAA bond rating on the outstanding debt and gave a AAA bond rating for the general obligation bonds we just issued. We had, and I put in here the listing, we actually had 10 bidders for, it was a really well done one. Fairly tight, 2.57 to 2.84%, but very good rates. This is actually, Brownstone Investment Group has played in the secondary market. So basically the underwriters who underwrite our deal then turn around and sell it into the marketplace. This is actually the first time this firm has entered into being the primary underwriter on it. So this was their first one. So obviously we have some appeal out there in the marketplace and they jumped on it. So 2.57% to borrow $4.56 million. We also received $415,000 of bond premium. So that money then can be used for any project where there is a bond ordinance. The ordinance is written that it's technically my discretion, but I don't hide the fact where I'm putting it. I put it towards the roofs because that is the project that is sort of next in line. Public Building Commission asked the facilities director to get architectural specs or architectural drawings and all of the other items together to be able to go out to bid. So he is actively working on that. So this will help fund that. And then hopefully, if we're close to the original estimate, the bond premium would actually cover all or very close to all of the town hall roof. The goal is to be able to go out and do town hall and library both next year, if not simultaneously, then back to back. So that could that'll have a big chunk into paying for it, which means next year we could either borrow less than was originally laid out or consider other projects that might go in there, but it gives you a lot of great discretion. The last thing I will say is in going through this process and where the rates fall, we have bonds that fall within the refunding window. So you can't issue bonds and then immediately refund them. But it's similar in principle to kind of refunding your home mortgage, except you have to go back to the market and say, we'd like to do this. What would you offer? As opposed to the bank saying, we'll give you this. Do you want to do it? In looking at it, our financial advisor went through all of the available bonds. It's just under $20 million of bonds are available. So Thursday, we will be doing a refunding sale. If the rates end up in the neighborhood of what we've seen here today, we'll be looking at around $40,000 to $60,000 a year of savings for 10 years, or somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 of interest savings. Your principal would be the same, your timing would be the same, you just pay less interest every year on it. So if it doesn't work out that way, then we just simply don't refund them. We stay where we are. This refunding, the reason it didn't come to you and follow what we normally do for bonding, refunding bonds actually fall under the state statute, which overrides all local charters and only requires the legislative body to approve. The council did that at their last meeting on October 1st, so we're going to go forward with it. But I want you to be aware because it's obviously a good idea, and either we save money or we don't do it.
That's because of the improvement in our bond ratings.
Well, we've been at that level since 2019. We've been a AAA rated company since just before COVID, through COVID, and it continues. They were very complimentary of, everything from management to the financial condition to the economic development. The interim town manager did a great job. Chris Edge did a great job when we had a call with Standard & Poor's. And obviously one of their questions was, you don't have a town manager. Town manager retired. There was a bit of concern there when they got on the call, but with Lee's background, with the way he presented it in his resume, that put them completely at ease, and they were very complimentary across the board of where we stand. So the town's in probably the best position we could be in. I mean, AAA ratings, the highest rating you could get. We've had it, like I said, for 5, coming up on 6 years. So it's a strong position.
With the interest rate outlook as it is, though, aren't we jumping the gun?
Well,
We're talking about the Fed's looking at reducing rates. Be in a more favorable position if
I did talk to.
rates did go down.
Yeah, I did talk to our financial advisor, and he said that these rates have already for several months embedded an assumption of 3 rate cuts. So they don't wait for the Fed to take action. They kind of embed in what they anticipate to happen. Certainly we could wait. It could go down a little bit more. It could flatline or it could go up. And we want to take advantage of the AAA rating. We want to take advantage of the position. So again, if we're not in the 2.5 2.6% range, we don't need to do it. If we're not going to sell it, we will if it's not executed. So we don't even have
Should not do it when the rate is this level or that level. That is in their authorization.
not in the authorization, no.
So that's up to who they decide.
Would ultimately be up to the town manager and me on the call. We're looking to save about $500,000, so $50,000 a year.
Just one more comment. Kevin, I just want to acknowledge all the hard work that you put into these bond rating ordeals.
Oh, thanks.
I've seen the other side of it. And in my old life, seen a lot of the work that goes into these things, and there is a ton of work. So thank you for everything that goes into this, especially when it comes up with a result that gives us a great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And there's a lot of people involved. I mean, our financial advisor from Phoenix is fantastic. bond counsel was phenomenal from Pullman. For years, we had Joe Fazzi, and Joe was absolutely phenomenal. When he retired, he joined up just prior to the end with Pullman and Comley because he wanted to transition his clients over to a firm, great deal of confidence, things would continue, and they've been phenomenal.
Who do you deal with?
We have Jess and Sandy over there, so.
Who's at Phoenix?
Matt Spurndle. So we've had a lot of consistency there too, and then we use US Bank, which is a phenomenal clearing bank. We've used the same people for many years, and they've served the town well.
I need some more glow in the orange.
Yeah.
Everything in there is so positive.
Yeah, which is a compliment to you guys, to the council, to everybody on, on staff that's involved with this. There's a lot of oversight, and the town has done well.
Okay. Next.
The next thing, I just want to make you aware, the Public Building Commission Thursday will be talking about this, but Willard HVAC project was funded by the ARPA grant, which is phenomenal. In that time, and there's a lot of numbers here, but kind of the big piece to look at is in the first page, the bottom section. So we had two major vendors we were working with who had contingencies. Allstate, who's doing the construction, and Newfield, who's doing the construction management. Back when the project started, the council approved contingency of $350,000 for Allstate and $93,125 for Newfield. To date, we've not used any of the contingency for Newfield. We've used some of the Allstate and repurposed some of it for Friar so we could start working on Hubbard and Griswold. The way the ARPA grant works is the money has to be obligated by December 31st of this year. Obligated is either under contract or a purchase order. So there's a legal obligation of the town. Contingency doesn't have a legal obligation. It's sort of a just in case. So I've asked the council, and the council did agree to ask the PBC to review this and determine if it will be spent. If they don't anticipate spending the rest of the contingency, and again, it would be the ARPA contingency, the local contingency under Allstate would still remain. That's town funds set aside. So there would still be contingency. This project is about 95% complete. All the internal work is done. The chillers are on the pad. So it's hooking up, commissioning, that type of thing. If we leave the money here and don't spend it, we don't have it obligated by December 31st, it has to go back to the US Treasury. So on page 2, those sum up to 228, almost 229,000. So the request was to ask the Public Building Commission to evaluate all 4 contractors. Are we going to spend everything we're under contract on? That includes Friar and Sustainable Engineering, and they're kind of, now that it's coming to the end, it's commissioning and that type of work. Are they going to spend the project balance, and can we release the ARPA contingency? At this point, it doesn't appear that we're in a position to be under contract for Hubbard and Griswold construction management, certainly not construction by the end of the year. So right now, the tentative ask, if the Public Building Commission agrees Thursday, we ask to, and this will come back to you guys in November if they do, to reduce the appropriation for the HVAC projects by this amount and move that appropriation to the police station project. And then have the council authorize, you don't have to do this for vendors, but have the council authorize using that money towards Millennium Builders, who's actually the construction builder who's under contract, which would allow us to reduce the amount authorized for bonding and replace it with ARPA funds. It's basically 4 steps. It's kind of a pain because we have to basically take your appropriation back from some of Willard and put it towards the police station. But that's one, we have a contract, we can add it to the PO. We're not going to return the money, potentially could bond less or shift bond money to the other HVAC projects later. So it's a bit of a game, so to speak, but we're on the clock to get that done. And what I'm suggesting with that is put it where you know you have a contract. So you're not going to have to return the money. When you start playing with bond money or local money, you've got time to do what you want, but this you don't. So nothing for you to decide tonight. I just want you to be aware this is out here. PBC will be meeting Thursday, regular meeting to discuss it. And there's a draft agenda that would go to the council Tuesday. if everything goes like I just said, that you will get it at your next meeting to vote on.
The police station is eligible for a project.
Yes, the way I wrote, under $10 million, the US Treasury back in 2023, with their interim final guidance version, like 9 or whatever, had basically given a wide latitude to any community that received less than $10 million. So when I submitted the ARPA funding, I had put it as construction projects, including HVAC, police station, and other public value projects. I kept it as broad as I could. We could certainly do that, and certainly education and public safety both fell right under what COVID and ARPA was intended for. So this is just making you aware, nothing to vote on tonight, but might be coming, hopefully will coming back to you at the next meeting. All right, coming into the end. Results are looking good right now for the year. Revenue, the receipts, and the tax are both slightly ahead of where we were last year. So very good results there. Expenditures are a little bit ahead of where they were last year. Part of this is just timing, and I know from a finance standpoint, that's a bit weak of an answer, but one in particular, we have switched insurance carriers from Kerma to Travelers. In the process, instead of paying quarterly, we pay all up front. So in this year, you're seeing a year's worth of liability and workers' comp insurance in the first month, as opposed to spread over 4 quarters. So that's the biggest driver, kind of pulling some of those expenses forward. You know, as far as the ones we typically look at, like storm-related, electricity, refuse, even legal and tax refunds, we're in good shape on all of those. Health insurance had a phenomenal month in September. I know there were periods a few years ago where we had particularly bad months. This was a phenomenal month. We expect about 200 to 215,000 a week of expenditures this year. We didn't break 200,000 in any one of the weeks, and we received our quarterly pharmacy rebate from Cigna. So we had great weeks and a rebate. I wouldn't expect that level to stay for the year, but it's continuing to be strong. Pensions continue to be strong. I'm expecting in October that I will get the new liabilities for both, but they are both doing really well and in good position. Projects continue to move along. And the one area that I'm calling out as an opportunity right now would be building inspection. For the last 2 months, we had sizable work being done. So we had a couple of very big individual inspections, and that resulted. This would obviously be conditioned on some of the bigger ones we saw later last fiscal year repeating. But with the projects that are in place right now on the Berlin Turnpike, some other things coming down in Farmington Ave, I think that's probably fair. And then finally, a good month for the VNA. They were up versus prior year. We continue to trail a little bit behind last year, but you'll remember that the budget was actually down from the prior year. So if we could even keep on pace with last year, that would be a strong statement for them. That's it for me, unless you guys have any questions.
We'll call it. Is there a way to find out if we were to move just the car tax up to the state mandated max was 32.46, I think. What would that net us in revenue? I'm just curious because I think we're going to have to start doing that. We're going to have to split the car insurance or the car taxes for the state.
You're talking about going from where we are right now to the.
Well, the state has changed how they're doing it. So we're $2.5 million, $2.6 million. Prize. And
I guess the other question I would ask is what would it have to be to make it neutral?
well, I think it's capped at 32.46 no matter what.
But is there an amount in between that
But I
would
just
be
like,
neutral?
yeah, I mean, maybe we need less,
Well, we won't
maybe
even
we
need
need
the
more.
2.5 million, 30.46. I don't think we even need the 2.5 million.
Yeah, what's your point in going there then?
Well, because at least we're gonna gain some of the revenue back.
Well, I'm saying, how much, what does it
Do
need
we
to
need
go
it?
to get to be neutral? Get what I mean?
I can do both,
Yeah.
figure out the
Yeah,
neutral,
figure it
figure
out.
out where that is.
The state has a cap on the car.
No,
tax.
but there might be.
What are we at the
There
mill
might
rate
be
right
a
now?
happy medium.
30.21.
30.21.
Yeah.
Maybe with the
31.
car tax stuff, we could
Yeah.
go to 32 or 33. And that
Yeah,
would make up the shortfall that we're gonna experience.
What I'm saying is, I don't think it's gonna make up 2.6 million.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
We'll see where we come in at
Yeah.
anyways.
The one thing I would caution on that, and you could certainly do that, I do really believe that the legislature is moving towards eliminating the motor vehicle tax.
Completely.
So I would caution against trying to do too much to mitigate, because part of this, it's 30%. Basically, if the grand list were to remain constant, you'd lose about 30% of the car grand list value, which that means 30% would shift. If you mitigate a chunk of that, you're actually gonna make the cliff later on steeper. I think what they're trying to do is walk it away. So 30% now, let's say 30% more next year, and it slowly goes away as opposed to wipe out,
one year to the other.
the town gets about $9 million a year of tax revenue from the cars. So, it's a big chunk of money.
I still don't see how they could do it on the larger scale of a city. That's, I mean, 9 million in Berlin. What is it in Hartford? I just don't understand where they think it's gonna come from.
I think that
Well, they'll just move it from the towns to the cities.
one of the
what they
proposals
do.
was to take the real estate that is, the appraised value is then hit with 70%, and that's your
Make it
assessed value,
higher.
make it 100%, or give the town flexibility to do what you want. But all that really does is change the mathematical
Yeah.
formula of shifting it to real estate. It doesn't change the shift to real estate. And I don't imagine anybody really cares whether it's your mill rate or your assessment percentage. If they want $1,000 more out of your bank account, it's $1,000 more out of your
Right.
bank
Or
account.
if it's on
Do
a
whatever
car,
math
or
you
if it's on
want.
a house.
Yeah,
Still for good games.
Well, it matters because it's people who don't pay anything on a house, but do pay on a car. Right? So we're gonna lose money on the cars from everybody who's a renter.
Right,
Yes.
which doesn't,
We're gonna
again,
punish
though,
homeowners.
for a town like Berlin is one
Right.
thing, but for
Like
Hartford or New
Hartford.
Britain, I don't get it. I don't know where they're gonna come up with that difference.
yeah, I don't know. And one of the biggest proponents represents what, Bloomfield, South Windsor. I mean, he was one of the biggest proponents. I don't know. Certainly the ones that probably will hurt the most with little offset will be a lot of your commercial businesses. If you're a company with a lot of vehicles, you'll get an offset. If you're a homeowner, if I have a car, 2 or 3, I get some offset reduction in car,
Yep.
increase in real estate. If I'm a business that doesn't have really a lot of cars, I just have employees and real estate, my real estate goes up and I have no offset. So I don't know.
Okay.
I wanna be in Windsor Lines.
Right,
Oh, yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's another big
It's a
example.
hidden-
Well done.
Yes.
To
All right.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second? Second. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.